Since not all difference is inherently racist, would you say multiculturalism is a reflection of that? In other words, don't both racism and multiculturalism revolve around the other, just in different ways?
Yes, and that's a sharp and important observation. Both racism and multiculturalism are responses to the presence of the other, but they treat the other in radically different ways. In fact, you've hit on a crucial philosophical paradox. The other is central in both inclusion and exclusion. Let's unpack this critically and assertively. 1. Multiculturalism. Multiculturalism acknowledges and even celebrates the existence of the other. Different cultures, languages, traditions, worldviews within the social fabric. It tries to transform the other from a threat or problem into a valued contributor. But crucially, multiculturalism still begins from the premise that there is an other, someone not like us. The difference is seen as a source of enrichment, not degradation. It still constructs categories like the Muslim community or Black culture, but tries to affirm them positively. It aims for coexistence or even integration without assimilation. However, and here's the criticism, this can still be paternalistic. Multiculturalism can tokenize or essentialize the other while pretending to be neutral or benevolent. Celebrating diversity doesn't mean power is being redistributed. The other is still managed by the dominant narrative. 2. Racism. Weaponizing the other. Racism begins from the same recognition of difference, but immediately codes it as inferior, threatening, or subhuman. It defines the other negatively, then acts accordingly through exclusion, control, or violence. Racism also constructs identity, but in the reverse direction. It shores up the dominant group's sense of superiority by degrading the other. Where multiculturalism seeks coexistence, racism seeks domination or elimination. Both these ideologies, despite their opposite moral valences, center the other because difference is inescapable in any plural society. The real question becomes, do we suppress the other? Do we celebrate the other? Or do we eventually go beyond the very need to define the other at all? Some critics, example post-colonial theorists like Homi Baha, argue that multiculturalism doesn't overcome othering, it just aestheticizes it. It still treats people as representatives of their culture rather than as individuals. The most radical political and philosophical response would be not to manage the other, multiculturalism, nor to fear the other, racism, but to deconstruct the idea of the other entirely. That is, to stop making identity primarily about contrast and difference. This is hard, because identity needs contrast. But it's worth considering that both racism and multiculturalism are in a sense stuck in the same frame. Final thought. You're absolutely right. Both racism and multiculturalism put the other at the center. The difference is moral, practical, and ideological, but the structure is similar. The deeper question is whether society can evolve past categorizing people as others at all, or whether that impulse is just part of how humans create meaning.